A San Francisco jury's acquittal on Thursday of a Mexican man in the 2015 killing of Kate Steinle has reignited an old rallying cry on the right for stricter immigration reform and a crackdown on so-called sanctuary cities. Steinle, 32, was shot in the back on July 1, 2015, as she and her father strolled along Pier 14 in San Francisco. District prosecutors charged José Inés García Zarate, a 45-year-old Mexican national who had entered the United States illegally 6 times and had been deported 5 times, with killing Steinle. The fact that Zarate had previously been released from the county jail, even though federal immigration authorities had sought to detain him, quickly became a lightning rod for conservatives in the debate over immigration reform. President Trump, who invoked Steinle repeatedly on the campaign trail as an example of the danger posed by illegal immigration, fired off a string of tweets Thursday night and early Friday morning, calling the verdict disgraceful, and warning that the Schumer-Pelosi Democrats are so weak on crime that they will pay a big price in the 2018 and 2020 elections. Justice Department officials said Zarate would be deported, and on Friday, the department issued an arrest warrant for Zarate, who has remained in law enforcement custody, and noted that his existing federal detainer order requires that he be transferred to the custody of the U.S. Marshals Service and transported to Texas. San Francisco, where Steinle was killed, is considered a sanctuary city, in that local law enforcement authorities have declined to participate in immigration enforcement, which they say is the responsibility of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE). Zarate had been released from jail, where he had been held on a marijuana charge 212 months before the killing. Local officials had not notified ICE, which was seeking to deport him, and ICE had not presented the warrant needed to hold Zarate longer. Defense attorneys argued Zarate had found the gun on the pier and had fired it accidentally, the bullet ricocheting off the concrete before striking Steinle in the back. After 6 days of deliberations, the jury on Thursday convicted Zarate in the unlawful possession of a firearm, but found there was not enough evidence to convict him for murder or manslaughter. ICE Deputy Director Tom Homan blamed the city of San Francisco for a death that the Trump administration alleges was preventable. San Francisco's policy of refusing to honor ICE detainers is a blatant threat to public safety and undermines the rule of law. This tragedy could have been prevented if San Francisco had simply turned the alien over to ICE, as we requested, instead of releasing him back onto the streets. Homan said in a statement Thursday. Trump and other Republicans have used Steinle's name over the past 2 years to justify Trump's proposed border wall and his attempt to block federal assistance to sanctuary cities. They have also championed a piece of legislation dubbed Kate's Law, that would enhance penalties for convicted and deported criminals who re-enter the United States illegally. The bill passed the House in 2016, but stalled in the Senate, and has shown no sign of reviving. The death of Kate Steinle was a heartbreaking and preventable tragedy. She died in her father's arms at the hand of someone who violated our nation's laws and who never should have been in our country. Sen. Chuck Grassley-Riowa, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary's Committee and a co-sponsor of the Senate version of Kate's Law, said in a statement Friday. The sad reality is that had local authorities cooperated with federal law enforcement, this could have been avoided. We must honor Kate's legacy by taking steps to ensure that this does not happen again, Grassley said. The United States Senate should immediately pass Kate's Law to improve community safety and prevent future tragedies. Immigration advocates argue that Steinle's ostensibly accidental killing has been exploited to push forward sweeping new immigration policies, and unfairly vilify millions of undocumented immigrants. One unfortunate scenario shouldn't be used to cast aspersions against every immigrant in this country, and that's what we see happening, said Jenny Pasquarella, the director of immigrants' rights and a senior staff attorney at the American Civil Liberties Union in Southern California. Zarate's time in court ended up being one of the most politicized criminal trials in years, with the court handing out spots in the courtroom by lottery, and the judge instructing jurors to ignore the swirling politics around the case. Rosmir Karimi, the sheriff who had presided over Zarate's earlier release, lost his bid for re-election, in part because of the case, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. Conservative pundits and media outlets erupted in outrage over the verdict Thursday night. Breitbart.com, run by former White House advisor Stephen K. Bannon published at least 8 related headlines on its homepage overnight, leading with FIVETIMESTEPORTED illegal alien found not GUILTYIN murder of Kate Steinle. Stephen Camerata, the director of research at the Center for Immigration Studies, an organization that advocates for strict limitations on both legal and illegal immigration, said the verdict could have an impact on the ongoing congressional battle to resolve the status of the nearly 700,000 people who were granted temporary protection from deportation under the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals DACA program started by President Obama. Those who want to crack down on immigration want to see stricter provisions put into place before any DACA recipients are allowed a path to renewed or permanent legal status. The idea is that if you give legal status to illegal immigrants, you're going to encourage more illegal immigrants in the future, Camerata said. Jim Steinle, the victim's father, has filed a wrongful death suit against the city and county of San Francisco and the U.S. government. But the family has objected to the way Kate's death has become a political football. Kate Steinle's brother, Brad, has criticized Trump for sensationalizing Kate's death to advance his immigration proposals, particularly his plan to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. Donald Trump talks about Kate Steinle like he knows her. Brad Steinle said in a CNN interview in 2015. He added, "I've never heard a word from him. I don't want to be affiliated with someone who doesn't have the common courtesy to reach out and ask about Kate, and our political views and what we want." Thursday's verdict appeared to shock trial observers. "Stunning," said the San Francisco Chronicle. Jim Steinle, Kate Steinle's father, who was with her when she was shot, said he was saddened and shocked by the verdict. "There's no other way you can coin it. Justice was rendered, but it was not served," he told the Chronicle in an interview. But he said it marked an end to a painful period in the family's s. "We just want to get this over with and move on with our and think about Kate on our terms. Nothing's been on our terms. It's been on everyone else's terms," he told the newspaper. Steinle, who is in the Bay Area community of Pleasanton, had been walking with his daughter when she was shot on that July day. He later testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee that, "Help me, Dad," were her last words. The bullet that killed Steinle came from a .40 caliber 6-hour P239 semi-automatic pistol that had been stolen from the car of a ranger with the Bureau of Land Management. The manner and intent with which Zarate obtained the gun and fired it were fiercely debated in court. Prosecutors showed video of Garcia Zarate's police interrogation, in which he gave varying stories about whether he was actually present on Pier 14 that night. He said that he shot the gun at Seals, but also that it went off accidentally when he stepped on it, ABC7 reported. Zarate's signed confession from that police interrogation was admitted into evidence at the trial. But defense lawyers questioned its validity, arguing that police had lied to Zarate, telling him they had recovered the weapon and found a DNA match that implicated him, which had not happened at the time. After the gun fired accidentally in Zarate's hands, his attorneys said he held it into San Francisco Bay, not to hide his crime, as prosecutors contended, but because he was scared by the noise of the weapon. After deliberations that began on November 21, Garcia Zarate, a Mexican citizen, was found not guilty of murder, as well as the lesser charges of involuntary manslaughter and assault with a deadly weapon. He was convicted of being a felon in possession of a firearm, which carries a sentence of up to 3 years. Federal immigration officials said they would deport Garcia Zarate, and a justice official confirmed to the Washington Post that the department is considering federal charges against him. In releasing Garcia Zarate, who had a history of nonviolent crimes, the sheriff at the time said he was following San Francisco's sanctuary policy, which limited the cooperation of local law enforcement with immigration authorities. The sheriff, Ross Karimi, was later defeated in a bid for re-election, in part because of the case, according to the Chronicle. Weeks after his release, Garcia Zarate, then homeless, was wandering around Pier 14 in San Francisco, which was crowded, as it often is, with visitors. A memorial site for Kate Steinle in 2015. Paul Chin San Francisco Chronicle. Among them was Catherine Steinle, better known as Kate, who worked in sales for the medical device company Medtronic and had recently moved in with her boyfriend in San Francisco, according to the San Jose Mercury News. Her father, Jim Steinle, who is in the Bay Area community of Pleasanton, was with her. As she walked with her arm around him, they heard a gunshot. Her father would later testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and the next thing he knew she had fallen to the ground. "Help me, Dad," were her last words, as she looked up at her father, he later said. The bullet, fired from a .40 caliber Sig Sauer P239 semi-automatic pistol stolen from the car of a ranger with the Bureau of Land Management, hit Steinle in the back and pierced her aorta. She died 2 hours later at San Francisco General Hospital. At the month-long trial, according to the Chronicle, prosecutors said Garcia Zarate arrived at the pier with the gun and deliberately fired it towards Steinle. Prosecutors showed video of Garcia Zarate's police interrogation, in which he gave varying stories about whether he was actually present on Pier 14 that night. He said that he shot the gun at SEALs, but also that it went off accidentally when he stepped on it, ABC7 reported. Defense lawyers elicited an admission from police that they lied to Garcia Zarate in order to get a truthful response, telling him they had recovered the weapon when they had not, and that there was a DNA match that implicated him, which there wasn't at the time. Defense lawyers had an alternative version of events. They said Garcia Zarate found the gun wrapped in a cloth on the pier and that it discharged accidentally as he held it, with a bullet ricocheting off the concrete before striking Steinle. He held it into San Francisco Bay, not to hide his crime, as prosecutors contended, but because he was scared by the noise of the weapon. During deliberations, according to the Chronicle, jurors asked if they could test the trigger of the pistol, presumably to see if it could fire accidentally. The judge denied the request. Abigail Housloner in Washington and Alyssa Greenberg in Berkeley, California contributed to this report.